Hey, Rick, good to see you, man.
Hey, good morning, Keith Jones. How's it going?
I'm good, man. We're gonna dive right into this one, man. So this was inspired by Michael Singer, the author of Untethered Soul and the Surrender Experiment, which we are both fans of. He has a lecture series on the Untethered Soul, and so he did. The topic is what happens when you're not using your mind, and what it implies is that your mind is using you. What happens? Which is all it's judgment and it's negative chatter and changing its direction of telling you what to do, giving bad advice, the whole 9 yards. So unless you are consciously directing it to do something like, hey, listen, can you book this flight for me? Give it stuff like that, it can do great. But when you try to like, hey, can you solve this relationship problem for me? No. No, hands off. Like I'm not being appreciated at work. They're not listening to my ideas. Can you go in and handle that? No, bad news. You don't want that guy. You don't want that handling that at all. But a lot of times it does. You know what? The teacher said this about my kid. Let me fire this email off. Ooh, no, you don't want that. So Michael Singer says is that you have your mind who is constantly flopping around, doing all kind of crazy stuff. It's like when you walk down the street and you see it, or walk somewhere and you hear these voices talking, and people hear these voices, right? Like, except you hearing from somebody who's actually saying them out loud. But we have them going on in our head all the time, and it never shuts up. So he says that, like, so what happens when you don't do anything with your arm? Like, if you don't constantly make your arm move, like nothing happens. It just stays there. What happens when you don't do anything with your mind? The exact opposite happens. And like, it's all over the place, right? And so he talks about now, if your arm did that and if your arm was just flopping around, all this other stuff, you go see a doctor about that and you talk to the son. This is doing it all day and you do nothing about it, but take advice from it. You let it create your whole world experience about what this person is, what you don't even know that person, making judgments about it, this and that. But here, so your arm is doing this and you go see something about it, but this is doing that and you won't do a thing about it. You think it's normal. And so insane. But it's insane. If somebody was doing this, you're like, that person is insane with them. But you're doing this all day, and you don't think that's insane because it's become normal for us. And again, that's where the practice comes in. The practice helps you detach from all this insane behavior of the mind, so that you are aware that you have choices and you can constantly direct the mind, and you can. Like, our focus is to be the best human being when we walk into this space. You want to be a contribution to humanity when we walk out of this house. We're going to be kind. Even when we're met with incivility, we're going to practice kindness and compassion. Because what's happening with this person who's being uncivil, not judging, just observing, but it's a strong bet that this is happening for them up here, because they're not consciously directing it. They may think they are, but being hurtful is not what the conscious self does. The higher self does not behave like that. The higher self is compassionate, is kind, is loving. So, Rick, what do you think about that analogy?
I can't think of a better analogy than that. The flopping arm, and going to see a doctor. Get a neurologist to give you a hand with that. You could be in therapy for years, and you wouldn't think anything of it. It's a legitimate problem. We got to solve it. But you're right. The monkey mind, it's not only normal, it's just what we think is required. We encourage it. The more thoughts we have, the better we think we can control things. Well, this brings up a very interesting point, and it's at the heart of Zen, which is the notion that thinking is the booby prize. That you are much, 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 much more than your physical. I think we all accept that. Much, much more than your mind. But we treat our minds as if that's the key thing that drives us. And it does. I mean, especially if you're in a cerebral profession like you folks are in psychology and in medicine, you're in a cerebral profession. So the mind is what's gotten you where you are. And it's also figured out the solutions to many of the humans' sufferings that we've had physically over the years and psychologically and emotionally as well. So the mind is a wonderful tool, but Zen teaches that you are, get this, you are the thinker behind the thought. You are something different than the mind. You are something different in addition to your body. So when you think of it that way, if you can approach it as the mind is a wonderful tool, and you just have to make sure that you apply it to the right problem. So, for example, you wouldn't use a socket wrench to cut a turkey at Thanksgiving. I mean, that just doesn't work, right? So the tools of compassion and self-understanding and lack of acquisitiveness and trying to get out of having things your way, those are the tools that bring you to a solution of inner peace. Not the mind. The mind is doing the opposite. So you just have to recognize that that's a component of your life that's important, but it's not the component that's a universal tool that works in every circumstance. That's the real tough thing to get. You are the thinker behind the thought. You have a panoply. You have a whole toolbox of things to use. The compassion and empathy is one tool, totally different than the mind trying to create a mathematical solution to a problem that requires a mathematical solution. Two different things, but two very, very important things to get straight in your own being about what the limitation of the mind is. So getting back to your idea with the flopping left arm, Singer, I think, is exactly right. It's a perfect analogy for what's happening. Stilling that monkey mind so that you can just experience the pure experience, the pure joy of just being without doing, just being. Try to think of it maybe like this. In meditation, one of the things that you're looking for is to have no reaction to anything, to have this idea that you are being in a place between a thought. There's a thought, there's a thought, there's a thought. Instead of the thoughts, you let the thoughts go and you try to focus on the gap between the thoughts. And if you can get that even for 10 seconds, it's an enormously empowering feeling. And it gives you this notion that the mind is not where inner peace lies. That's not where the mind is. That's not its goal. That's not what it wants to do. It's not what it's good at. Right. But we continue to rely on it. So I think meditation is really a wonderful opportunity. And say, you go to the neuropath to fix the floppy arm. All right, go to meditation, to fix the monkey mind chatter.
Oh, absolutely, Rick. I mean, so a metaphor for the floppy arm is your obsessive thinking about stuff, your ruminations, your worrying, your anxiety, all that stuff. Like, how has anxiety, worry, rumination solved anything?
Yeah.
They don't. I mean, they just cause suffering. Now, if you can direct the mind toward a challenge or a problem and come up with a solution, then you're good to go, man. You gave some advice a long time ago in our early days with people that were trying to get over, to deal with worrying and obsessive thinking. And all you said is like, instead of doing that throughout the day, just schedule in 10 minutes of your day and say, okay, here's 10 minutes. I'm just going to worry for the next 10 minutes. And then you're done. You're done for the rest. Then you can go off and enjoy the rest of the day.
Yeah, that's right.
And so if you're a person, if you're a person who like go to bed and you can't sleep because you're worrying and ruminating or anxious about tomorrow, then go to bed, prepare yourself to go to bed. Part of your nighttime ritual includes 10 minutes before you get under the covers. And it's 10 minutes of worrying and being anxious and obsessive thinking. And then you go to bed and sleep like a baby. Instead of having this thing flop around all the time.
That's true.
Do this thing, man. And when I got to the point to where I was just going to let things go. And again, when people hear let things go, I think the old me would have thought like, what, you're just going to be indifferent? You're going to be passive? No, it's the exact opposite. Didn't you hear? This doesn't do anything unless it's directed in a way that's, in my opinion, that's rooted in peacefulness. Otherwise, you're going to cause suffering for others and for yourself. And so it's just been this amazing game changer for me when I was able to become aware, because it's always been there, but I wasn't aware of it, that I am not my mind, that I am the observer, I'm the witness, I'm the watcher behind the mind.
That's right.
The mind is that unless I take control over it, it will continue to do this all day, every day. I look at people that are worrying and like I used to be, or complaining all the time, or obsessive thinking, or making everybody an enemy who didn't think like I did. Rick, is exhausting. And the way I was living was as if I didn't value life.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because I'm giving it away. I'm giving all this precious moment away every
That's
time
right.
I stop and worry. And my worry didn't change one situation, produce one different outcome. It didn't
Yeah,
do it.
that's so true. And you know, you give up your present moments, and that's all your life is made up of is one moment, one moment, one moment, beginning with this very moment.
Right.
So all you have, the working unit of your life is this moment. And if you're going to fill that with anxiety and worry, and in my case, my thing that used to drive me nuts is, are you going to let them get away with that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's my thing. Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm going to teach you a lesson, man. I'm going to even the playing field, right? Watch me. And then the mind starts clicking on how many ways I can do that subversively and horribly, and without regard for the outcome, even just getting even. Anyway, the point is, if you put all those little working moments together, you've spent an entire day or an entire hour or even 5 minutes
or a lifetime
wasting your life force over something that's just going to bring you pain and more inner turmoil.
Exactly. And that doesn't mean that people that have done bad things or behavior, that there aren't consequences. There are. I go out and get a speeding ticket or speed, I'm subject to a speeding ticket, and there's a consequence to that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so that will handle itself. And the people that are enforcing those things to make sure that we live in a safe and civil society, they have a job to do. And I'm hoping that they're approaching it from a very peaceful place that is rooted in doing what's in the best interest of all humanity. And you can do that when this thing isn't jumping all over the place, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And we see it. I mean, look at this. We're a country that has a ridiculous incarceration rate, right? Because this thing up here was doing all the controlling based on fear, this net vilifying people, all this other stuff. But if you'd have pushed from a very peaceful place, like, what do we really want? At the end of the day, what do we want? We want a safe society to where everybody can contribute and can experience, joy and fulfillment and live together. That's what we really want. So in enforcing rules and laws, how do we do it in a way that is going to, on the other side of paying for, not paying, but being responsible for those choices and those actions and those consequences, on the other side of that, the long road, the big picture, the long game, how do we have people come out on the other side of it whole? Like, how do we do that? And then they become another opportunity to contribute to society. That's playing the long game. The way we've been playing it, Rick, you in the legal field, man. So, but this is what's been controlling. It's been all of this. And I look at my own lives and all the relationships that I have literally caused a ton of suffering in it, man. Every bit of suffering that I've caused in a relationship, this was doing it. This over here, the floppy arm, all that other stuff, being defensive, making the other person pay, withholding love and attention, unconscious behavior, you name it, man. That's what was doing it. Had I been more conscious and directed the mind, you'd be more thoughtful here. You're going to be kind. You're not going to take that personal. You're not going to confuse behavior with who the person is, Rick. Whole different story, man.
Yeah, Keith, you're right. It's less suffering for you at the end of the day. Exactly. It's just such an easy formula, but it's so hard to follow. It's the problem. If it were easy, everybody would be calm and peaceful, and we would have these wonderful, workable situations all the time. Yeah. But it's not. Conflict is built into the whole scheme of things, and that's just part of the life force. It's part of the thing that you have to accept. Acceptance of flaws, acceptance of imperfection, acceptance of things that aren't going to last forever, incompleteness, all of those things, acceptance. Hard to do.
Yeah. And as you accept that, you come up with a question like, so I accept this to be true, that there's going to be challenges in life, and as the Buddha said, all life is suffering. How do I want to spend this working unit of my life, this moment?
Yeah, that's right.
How do I want to
exactly right, Keith?
And I want to spend it peacefully contributing. That's what I want to do. like
You
that.
and me both, brother.
Rick, thank you, man. I love you.
I love you. Take care, Keith.
Thank you, Rick.